There are others from the Senate who we wish were here or otherwise occupied, but I do want to acknowledge the support we've had from Senator John Warner, who, as I mentioned, was a co-sponsor of the 20th anniversary resolution, former Senator Sam Nunn, who they and so many others have made many contributions to our growth. We were hoping that, speaking of the other body, that maybe that's not the right way to put it, but House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, a very active supporter of ours in years when on the House side some folks didn't think we were really adding up to very much, but as long as we kept her fortified with chocolate-covered donuts, she was a major supporter, as was Congressman John Porter. Both of them did a great deal to keep us going when some people doubted that this institution had much of a future. But let me give special recognition to another former member of Congress with us tonight, who was there present at the creation, a creator of the Institute, because Dan Glickman was a member of the founding team. And for those of you who don't know the history, there was in the late 1970s a Congressional commission chaired by Senator Matsunaga that issued a report published in 1981 that recommended the formation of the National Peace Academy, as Senator Harkin mentioned. Bills were introduced in both houses, and Dan Glickman sponsored one of those bills as a representative of the great state of Kansas. Now, Dan Glickman's not in Kansas anymore, Toto, and I'm not sure exactly how he got his current job as head of the Motion Picture Association of America, but he's been a great supporter of the Institute. We're going to give him an Oscar for his long-standing support of our efforts, and Dan, we hope you'll come to the microphone and say some things.
Well, it wasn't because of my hairline that I got this new job, I can tell you that. Somebody said, you don't look like Jack Valenti. I said, no, I'm not Jack Valenti. Dick, thank you very much, and to Senator Inouye and the others who are here. I just thought I'd give you a little bit of historical perspective. I was elected to Congress in 1976, and I came from a district that had a very large Mennonite population. And immediately upon getting elected, I started getting these postcards. Now I guess it's all internet, but it was postcards saying, support the Peace Academy, support the Peace Academy. And you know, I didn't know much about anything at that time, and I just figured, well, it's some goofy group in my district, I won't worry about it. And then I realized after I got 40,000 of these postcards, I better start worrying about it. And so through that, I met Senator Matsunaga, who was the leader in the Congress on this. And so I was appointed to this commission along with, well, Senator Matsunaga was there, and there were Elise Boulding. There were several people who were involved in national peace efforts, and we went all over the country, but we did start and end in Hawaii. I want you to know that. That was the headquarters meetings, and he was one of the finest people I ever met in my life. As you know, he was just an amazing man. He's a sweet, sensible man, and in any event, we recommended this with the strong support, particularly of Senators Hatfield and Randolph, but there were others who were involved on it. And finally, the bill passed in the middle of the night. It was upstairs in the hallway between the Senate and House Intelligence Committees. I will never forget it because it was in the Defense Authorization Bill of 1995 that this became law. And Senator Nunn was the driving force to get it. 1985. But, and Senator Sam Nunn was the driving force in making sure that the bill had not passed either the House or the Senate in its final form. And so one of the great things about a conference committee, as Senators Inouye and Harkin know, is that you can do miracles in a conference committee, or at least you could then. And the Senate particularly could do miracles. And since I've always wanted to be in the Senate, I just always assumed that they could do miracles. And so that bill got enacted into law, and a lot of us on the Democratic side were nervous about, oh my goodness, this Institute of Peace is going to be enacted and President Reagan's going to eviscerate it. And that was the worry. And it's extraordinary because I have to tell you, it's through a wonderful bipartisan effort of great leaders like Chet Crocker and Dick Solomon and Sam Lewis, who was our ambassador to Israel, remember? This institute has become an exemplary place to teach people skills about resolving conflicts. And recently I saw a movie, and by the way, you should go see as many movies as you can. They're very good for the soul. Recently, I saw a movie called In My Country. It's a movie about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, and it's a theatrical production with Samuel L. Jackson. But it's about the TRC and what it's done, and it's just one example of what the Peace Institute has done. The Peace Institute helped train people to make that process work, and that has been a most extraordinary process, but there are many, many other examples of it. So, you know, the fact that I had a very small role, there were giants who had the primary role in this thing, and to think that we may now have in Washington, D.C. a big edifice. Buildings aren't that important, but sometimes they are. And just think, we have the Lincoln Memorial and the Jefferson Memorial and the White House and the monuments, and there will be a building called the U.S. Institute of Peace in Washington, D.C. It's an extraordinary thing, and it's something that these folks all ought to be proud of. And I would just close by, I've always been impressed by this Chicago architect, Daniel Burnham, who was responsible for building the Wrigley Building and the Tribune Building and all this great architecture in Chicago. And he once said, "Make no little plans, for they do not have the power to stir men's souls." And this is not a little plan. This is a big plan, and it stirred a lot of people's souls and maybe some positive interpersonal relationships around the world, and maybe just avoided a few conflicts in the process, which in my judgment is a mighty big achievement. So just being a part of it was great, and I thank you very much for inviting me tonight.